Welcome to Teaching in Color, the podcast where we empower teachers, redefine education, and amplify voices. Here, we dive into real stories, bold conversations, and the challenges and triumphs of educators making a difference. Whether you're in the classroom, the community, or just here for inspiration, this is your space. Let's talk, let's grow, and let's make change together. This is Teaching in Color. Welcome to another episode of Teaching in Color, the podcast where we celebrate educators who bring passion, purpose, and perspective to their classrooms and beyond. Today I'm so excited for this episode today because we're really honored. I am honored, truthfully, to have Evalaurene. Can I just call you Eva? Is that okay?
Eva's totally fine. Yes,
Okay.
that's what most folks call me. Yep.
Eva, I'm so excited to have Eva today on the podcast. A middle school history teacher from the Bronx and an inspiring co-founder and CEO of Black on Black Education. Eva's work is centered around empowering students and fostering school cultures where students of color can thrive. So I'm so excited for our conversation today. Thank you so much, Eva, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk, chat, and just get into it, right? Because we have a fun job. So let's talk about it.
We have a fun job. I totally agree. We have a fun job. And then we also have a lot of things that I definitely think, especially amidst all that is happening, that is so important and impactful for today. And I think that it needs to be heard, especially on a magnitude of where you're standing and the work that you have already done. So before we get started, I love to bring this question to the forefront of every episode. It really talks about your journey as an educator, how you started, what really impacted you and made you follow this journey. So your journey, again, as an educator is truly inspiring, and we'll get more into that. But can you share what motivated you to co-found Black on Black Education and the mission behind your work?
Yes. I mean, there are the story is long, but I'll give you the short and sweet version.
Yes.
I was absolutely the student that would tell my high school teachers, like, I don't know how y'all do this. This seems like the worst job that's ever existed. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I should have recognized that I always wanted to be the teacher when I was playing with my younger siblings, that I was in a Caribbean American household, the oldest sibling of 4. So becoming a teacher or being a teacher was kind of put in my DNA. Like, it was not optional. And so I went to college. I, like many people at the time, was obsessed with Criminal Minds and the SVU. And I was like, I'm going to be a profiler. I'm going to go to the FBI. And then I realized, like, girl, you don't even like the police. How are you going to be the mega police? What's wrong with you? So, we come to reality. We come to the realizations. When we learn more, we do better. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, what do I want to do? And I said, I really do like learning about the human mind. I still think it's really important to understand how to support people in getting from where they are to where they want to be. And so I said, you know what? I want to be a mental health counselor. I want to work in jails and prisons for youth. And I want to support young people in kind of recognizing the mistakes that they've made in the past and through therapy, supporting them in the future. And so I get an internship. I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. I absolutely adored my time there. And I had an opportunity to do an internship where I worked at an alternative sentencing program. So obviously, incarcerated individuals, especially incarcerated youth, are a protected class. So getting internships actually in that space is very, very difficult. So I wanted to get as close as I possibly could. So I worked with justice involved youth at a nonprofit organization. And when I walked in, I was kind of like, all right, they're going to have me like shadowing the mental health counselors. I'm going to be walking around and talking to people. And they said, girl, listen, our teacher quit and we're going to need you to teach these HSC classes. We're going to need you to teach these high school equivalency classes. And I said, okay, give me the book. They said, what book? Girl, go online, look at the test, teach the kids. Okay. And so gratefully, I worked under just an incredible Black woman that took me under her wing to support me in understanding what that looked like. But there was still a lot of figure it out. And I figured it out. And I probably worked with between 15 and 20 of our participants at that program, and approximately 60% of them passed their high school equivalency exam while they were working with me. And it was also 3 weeks in when I knew this is what I was supposed to be doing. I absolutely love those aha moments where there were folks who were older than me that I was working with, that they could see like my teacher just never broke it down that way, or you just listened to what I'm confused about in a way that teachers didn't before. And it just became so apparent that like so much of what we see in our education system, when we get to that place where we're saying, oh my gosh, our kids are failing or are this, I am a teacher's teacher. I am not about to blame our educators because we know the system is not set up to support us. But there are methods that we can take in the individual practices that we put forth in our classrooms that make a world of difference to our young people. To have people who are 20 years old telling me you're the first person to call me smart. You're the first person to tell me that I can do it. You're the first person that genuinely believed that I could pass this exam, is sad for someone to get to 20 years old and to just now be seeing that, to have participants coming in that were 18 and 19 and we're working with picture books because that's where their literacy level is, and yet they'd been passed on all the way to the 9th or the 10th or the 11th grade. So it just became apparent that like this is what I was supposed to be doing. I joined Teach for America. That's a whole nother podcast episode.
Right.
So we're not talking about them right now. But I joined Teach for America because I wanted to get into the classroom as quickly as possible. I thankfully had the opportunity to work to get my master's paid off through that program, which was great. And I am now and have been teaching in the Bronx for the last 5 years. So I'm so excited to continue this work, and more deeply than that, I'm so excited to support other educators on their journey to like being more joyful in the classroom, because listen, this job is hard, but we also have one of the best jobs in the world.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, you know, a lot of our listeners probably are connecting a lot of dots from your journey, you know, in that facility and going, you know, working with those students to, you know, not being fully prepared and, you know, having to take on the helm of such a difficult situation. There's a lot of parallels and connectors that we can make, you know, through the traditional system of like going through the undergrad, going to, you know, finally starting. I mean, if we're being completely transparent, there's not a lot of preparation in that in itself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, there's so many connectors. I want to ask you though, you know, working in that facility, working with the youth in that capacity, what are some misconceptions that people may, you know, already have about working with those groups of students?
Yeah. I think that they're the same misconceptions that they have when I tell somebody I work in the Bronx. Oh, that must be hard. So how is that? Is like always the response when I tell people that I work in the Bronx. When are you moving to Westchester? When do you plan on getting out? When do you plan on going to the suburbs? Because for a lot of educators, that's kind of the trajectory. They start in the inner city and then they say, oh, how quickly can I get into that suburban school? How quickly can I get out of the crazy and go over here? So I think that there is a huge misconception that our parents don't want to support their children, so we don't have that support. I was just on parent teacher conferences the last 2 days, and listen, the parents want to support their babies.
They want to support. They're there, yeah.
They're there, absolutely. I think too is that like the kids don't want to learn. It's like no, they just don't want what you selling, and I don't want what you selling either. I don't want to sit down and shut up and read a book and answer 4 questions in the textbook and then get kicked out to the next class. I don't want to do that either. So I completely understand. Yes, I have students that don't want to learn that way, but they are deeply committed to learning and to advancing themselves. I think that other misconceptions about this population of students is that, you know, like they're getting in trouble because they want this lifestyle. They've got the rappers and the basketball players. They want the lifestyle of the anger and the da-da-da. And you're just like, well, no, we all want the version of life that we've seen as possible for us. And so when we're in this moment where folks are like, attack DEI and da-da-da-da-da, it's like maybe you're seeing 4 or 5 more Black people on your TV screen, so you think like they're everywhere. But the reality is that only 15% of educators in the entirety of the United States are Black. And half of the students in the public education system are people of color.
Exactly.
So when we have young people walking into classrooms with people who don't look like them and then have made a commitment to not understanding them on a cultural level, yeah, you're going to have misconceptions and belief systems about a group of people because you just don't get them. If I go to another country and they don't talk to me when I walk down the street, if that's a cultural practice, who am I to say this whole group of people is terrible? We
Exactly.
don't do that. We know and we understand that this is a different way of operating in that space. The same can be said in our inner cities versus people who might be coming from different lived experiences and teaching our young
Hmm.
students, and they bring those biases and they bring those low expectations with them, and then our students meet those expectations. And so I think the biggest misconception is that like these students are somehow different
Hmm.
from you. They're somehow different from what you experience. Like they at the heart of it, we all want the same thing. We want to we want to grow, we want to be successful.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of who has access to that and who doesn't. And our education system is showing us time and time again that access is extraordinarily more a part of why kids are not getting what they need than races.
Exactly. I mean, you hit on so many great points, and I think the full conversation now, which should be there should be many scopes of this conversation, but I think right now the focus is truly on what you're saying is access.
Yeah.
And we again, time and time again, we see that in education. We have a school down in our areas that may have a low income socioeconomic status, or students who are maybe one parent household or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then you have another school who may have an abundance of resources based on their property taxes, based on who is living in that community.
Yep.
And it's so unfortunate. I mean, I think of some of the schools that we go to, especially like the one I work at. We have a lot of students who are wanting to be like graphic designers. They're wanting to be,
Mm,
engineers, all of these great things, but we don't hold those resources for them, like
yep.
classes or funding or extracurriculars that are based upon those skills that they
Yeah.
have to go into college already knowing,
Yeah.
which is crazy. While
Yep.
their counterparts are already in there, they're equipped, they're skilled with those practices, and we
Absolutely.
can see the disproportionate rate of who is making it towards the finish line, and it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. We got work to do. We got work to
So
do.
a lot of work, but I mean, again, you summed it all up so well, and I really want to talk about Black on Black education.
Let's do
It's
it.
described as an educational solutions firm. For those unfamiliar, what kind of support do you offer for schools and educators?
Absolutely. So this is my baby. Okay. I started Black on Black education with my father when
Mhm.
I was in undergrad. We did an entire documentary about us working together. We have since
Wow.
parted ways, not because I don't love my father, but because he has a deep commitment to working with schools around AI. And so we just
Hmm.
kind of like branched off into our own spaces to ensure that we were both living in our kind of locus of genius. But we did
Hmm.
an entire documentary about our experience and everything that we went through to pull this organization together. But I started it when I was in that same internship I talked about earlier.
Hmm.
There was an accompanying class. And so in
Hmm.
that class, we came in one day and our professor had a video for us to watch of a rapper and a lyricist. His name's Akala out in the UK. And he said on Pierce Morgan's show, he says he's asked over and over again, like, okay, what is it particularly about Black people that they're harming each other, and this Black on Black crime idea, this Black
Hmm.
on Black crime idea, and he turns around and he continues to answer that question, continues to answer it, and Pierce Morgan's like, but it just doesn't seem like is it race, like is
Hmm.
there something about, and he's like, no. Like what part of my answer are you not understanding? The reality is that if you are someone who is going to be a victim of a crime, which I hope you never are, the
Hmm.
likelihood of it being someone you know is astronomically higher than it being a random attack. And
Hmm.
two, if it is a random attack, interracial crime is extraordinarily low,
Yeah.
meaning that if you are to be a victim of a crime, particularly a violent crime, the likelihood of it being someone who looks like you is astronomically higher than it being someone else. So,
Hmm.
if that, knowing that to be fact, Black on Black crime, if that exists, then white on white crime exists, Latino on Latino crime exists, Indian on Indian crime exists, because every single population of people who are victims of crimes are usually victims of crime by someone who looks like them because
Hmm.
of proximity.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, with that being said, he goes into the idea of Black on Black education. And the minute he said that line, I went on Google and I said, does this exist somewhere? No, it does not. Great. Within 3 days, I had the domain name. I had the
Wow.
Instagram. I had the, like, I still don't use the TikTok, but I got it.
But
I
you have
still
it.
don't use the Snapchat, but I got it because
Yeah.
I knew I underlined it, or I think I actually circled it. I still have the paper, or at least a
Wow.
picture of it. And I knew that this was going to be something. I knew
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to figure out a way to reshape the way that we talked about education to live into the real and true tradition of Black on Black education, because that is real.
Yes.
When Reconstruction happened, I'm gonna give a history lesson real quick. But when
We
Reconstruction
need it.
happened here in the United States, they
Mm-hmm.
came down from the north and said, "Oh my gosh, let us go help these Black destitute people who can't read
Mm-hmm.
and can't. Let's go. We gotta go help them now."
Yeah.
And they came down there and they said, "We've been doing this, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been teaching each other for a long time. We've been
Mm-hmm.
doing the illegal work of teaching each other to read for a long time. We've been in candlelight with the one little book, making sure that we pass on the little bit of information that we have to help make what was our terrible, just inhumane, disgusting, despicable experience. We figured out, how do I make it 1% better, and how do I pass that information not only on to my children, because we know that the families were broken intentionally, but to the fictive family that I have built in my community, on this plantation, or whatever else." So I think that Black on Black education is not about me being a Black person teaching you about Black people. Black on Black
Mm-hmm.
education comes from a belief system that we historically have learned new information and said, "You know who I need to share this with? My Black and brown family. You know who I need to share this with? The Black people who I love and I adore, who might be my biological family, but who are my family because of our collective experience."
Mm-hmm.
And all of that came flooding to me in the moment that I heard that. And I knew that I had to make something out of it. And so over the course of the last 4 years, it's been a lot of different things, but we've honed in on student-centered practices and student voice as the thing that we really need to be doing, because we all been on Amazon. Every time I order from there, I feel like a terrible person, but we've all been there, right? We all place the orders, we all get the packages, and we're all excited and get that dopamine hit when we get them.
Mm-hmm.
But Amazon would never change its entire business model without talking to its customers.
Yes.
But education does that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
The customer is the student, but they decide, the policymaker who ain't never been in a classroom is going to decide and dictate what my standards are in my classroom. And I think that there's just a level of knuck if you buck that us as educators got to start having, because I got into this to be the educator that I needed, not to replicate the education that I received. I got into education to support Black and brown children and knowing how incredibly amazing that they are. And so when I get comments on my page that, like, "You're teaching victimhood," I'm like, no. Where? Yeah. Because over here, we are teaching our young people that their voice is powerful, that it matters, and that advocating for yourself, learning how to do that, is the most powerful thing that you can do. And that's the work that I do with Black on Black education. So specifically what that looks like is I built with students, wrote the curriculum with students, lesson plans written with students. We built a curriculum called the Student Action Board program, where your school, middle or high school, can help your students collect data themselves, help them learn how to create primary research projects themselves, so that they can hand you the data that says, these are the most pressing challenges in our schools, and these are what we need your help with solving. Stop worrying about this, and this, and this. This is what the students need. And having the students be in the forefront of building and developing what you as a school leader should be focusing on, what you as educators should be focusing on. So we built that curriculum that we have available. And right now, if folks support me in bringing a student action board to their school, we're sharing the wealth. So if you help me bring it to your school says yes, they pay for it, invoice in, we'll give you $500 out of that invoice to ensure, because this is community work, right? Exactly. So anyone who's interested in that can shoot me an email. That is going until December 31st. Another product that we have is our I'm Just a Kid, I'm Just a Teacher guided journal set. So we got the kid one up there. We've got the, those of you who are watching video, we got the teacher one here. A part of making better decisions in your classroom as an educator is being reflective. So if you can sit and have I don't have time to journal, great. The do now is journaling today. The kids got theirs, you got yours, and now you're having a great conversation about what both of you want to see out of education together. So we've got that as a service. And then, like, we'd love to help and support in the ways that we can by giving personalized trainings and things like that to ensure that the products and the services are matching and aligned with the culture of the school. But because I'm still in the classroom, that's a lot less of the work that we do.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for that. And I'll make sure
Thank
to,
you.
in the episode description, tag all of your products and all those things. That
Yes,
way we
thank
can
you.
continue the good work. And, like, I mean, again, you have such a great capsule of knowledge and wealth that I think is going to make beneficial, like, differences within our education system. And I hope that
Thank you
the
so
work
much.
continues.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
but you mentioned student voice, and that leads us to our next question. You're passionate about using student voice and student centered practices to transform school culture. What are some examples of how educators can implement these practices effectively into the classrooms? I know we talked about the journaling, but what's something else that they can successfully implement in their classrooms?
Absolutely. Um, it's gonna sound real cliche, but them surveys work.
Yeah.
Them surveys work. So at the end of every quarter, and even if I feel like school classroom culture is a little icky right now, I might just
Hmm.
give a survey very quickly with 2 to 3 questions to get an understanding of why. What's going on? Are we tired in the morning? Is my attitude not right? Is like
Right.
what's going on? That we're kind of just off of our game the way that we usually are, because that's going to happen multiple times throughout the school year, no matter how student centered you are, no matter how much effort you put into supporting your young people. They're coming in with more than what you have to offer. So it's not
Hmm.
to say that the work that you're doing isn't incredible, but these kids is having real life big feelings outside of here. So sometimes that comes in and one person just kind of it's a trickle effect. So
It's
one person
true.
comes in and they got a stank attitude. That stank attitude can sometimes trickle into the entire space. So surveys is an incredible way that you can use to get feedback from your students. And then actually, how do you take that feedback and use it?
Hmm.
One, be vocal about it. So if you go into the survey and students say, okay, we do an exit ticket every day. Can we do an exit ticket every other day? Or do we do an exit ticket every day? Can we have more time? Because I'm consistently not finishing my exit ticket because you're only giving 5 minutes and I need a little bit
Hmm.
more time. You can literally say, okay, well, for today's exit ticket, the next day after you get that feedback, for today's exit ticket, we're going to have 10 minutes instead of 5. I saw this in the survey. Thank you so much to whoever added that, because I always do them anonymous to ensure that students feel like they can really be honest with me. Because at the end of the day, I don't need to hunt nobody down who said, Miss Eva, you got an attitude, because you're probably right. Like, as teachers, we get to a space where you got a little attitude, things are frustrating, you're irritated. So sometimes you just need your kid to be like, girl, not too much.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's something that I do on a consistent basis to help me get feedback from my young people that will help kind of, again, sometimes it's these tiny things that we wouldn't even think of that they can
Yeah.
say, yeah, I'm not finishing my exit ticket. Now my grade, every day you grade that exit ticket, I'm not finishing them. Now my grade is dropping because I don't have enough time to finish. We can't
Hmm.
read their minds. We wouldn't have known that if they didn't give us that feedback. Now all of a sudden we see, wait, it's not that they don't understand the content, it's that they didn't have enough time to actually show me that they understood. So that's one way. And then another really great way is that, like you talked about the journaling as
Hmm.
a reflective practice, you can make this, yeah, journal, you do that individually, I do that individually, but then bring it into a restorative circle. A lot of
Hmm.
schools are using restorative practices, which is so deeply important, but oftentimes students only see it as something that happens after something bad happens.
Yes.
But restoration, our whole education system needs restoration, baby. So
Hmm.
these kids have gone through a system where for many of them, they've been traumatized by experience with teachers. They've
Yes.
been traumatized by experiences that the system has put them through, testing them 6 days in a row and all sorts of crazy things that young people should not have to deal with. That's very, very difficult to sit on a test that you don't understand because they just
Hmm.
want to see how you do on it,
Yeah.
that and have it be day after day after day for 4 days, needing to, that's a lot. So what can we do? How can we support? What Great. You can ask your young people and you can have them have this moment where they're empowered in the space to talk through what it is that they're feeling because of that. So a restorative circle, I've done blog posts on it. If you subscribe to the Black on Black Education Substack, I've done blogs on how you build and develop a restorative circle in your classroom that has nothing to do with discipline, that has nothing to do with harm to the community. It's about, again, making sure that your community stays as strengthened and as positive as possible.
Wow. That's something that I really want to delve in. And you talk about positive and creating a culture of where students have a voice, students are comfortable in their spaces. Why do you think creating a positive student culture or school culture is essential for students of color? And what
Oof.
can educators and school leaders do to foster this environment?
Well, first you could get a student action board.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because then you have it's dedicated space in your school for young people to be having these conversations. Let them elect in. How many of you are listening to this right now and are like, oh, the kids keep saying school is boring. They keep
Hmm.
saying it's stupid. They keep saying they don't care. And you don't think maybe we should do something about that?
Right.
Maybe. Because you don't like it here either. You don't like it here either. So
Yeah.
all my teacher friends right now, you've been in a school that was toxic. You've been in a school with school leadership that treats you like you're not a professional. You've worked with people who have tried to diminish what you have to offer in your classroom. How do you think the kids feel?
Hmm.
So, if you're a school leader or you're a teacher who has been in that position, if you're not feeling great, how is it that you can expect your young people to not feel that energy when they come into the classroom, they come into the space? When I come into, there's a difference between, again, I have my feelings about Chick-fil-A, but you go into a Chick-fil-A, that's a different vibe than when you go into the McDonald's at the corner of Grand Concourse.
Yeah.
You see, it's a different vibe because they've cultivated a culture that makes you feel differently than when you walk into that space versus when you walk into this other one. So if we want young people to come in as their best version of themselves when they walk into your school, every day in the morning, my kids see the principal first thing they come in the building, and we got music on and we're vibing and we're singing and we're dancing and we're talking to each other, and they can see, oh wait, the teachers like each other. The teachers ain't beefing. The principal likes the teachers. They cool. We can all break bread over music that you love, then I love. We got Ice Spice on one day. We got Luther Vandross on another day, right? And we're learning about each other just through these minute moments. That is very different than, let me wand you down. Do you have drugs in your bag? Come in, sit down. Why? Can we relax?
Yeah.
There's a difference between a TSA agent, put it in the bag, and the TSA agent that is talking to you gently. And you feel differently, and you walk in and prepare for your flight differently. It's the exact same thing in the classroom. When they come in, they feel love, they feel joy, they feel excitement, they're ready to learn. When they feel like you already don't want them there, that you already think that they're criminal, when you already think that they can't do it, that's the energy you're coming with them at. They're going to mirror it right back to you. So it's deeply important because, yes, academic attainment it's extraordinarily important. But the testing and the minute parts of what we teach, particularly, I used to be a high school teacher, like, they don't need to know half of this stuff. I ain't used it since I left high school. So we know that what they need to be leaving our classrooms with is more empathy, more compassion, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, the ability to say, I am an important part of my community and I need to be not only civically engaged, but communally engaged. Those are the sorts of things that if we want to see the change that we want to see in education in our communities as a whole, we have to have kids that are leaving our schools in that way. And so many of our schools want that on a theoretical level, but on a practical day-to-day level, aren't thinking about just the way that we interact with them, how much that plays a role in what they see as what their life is going to look like in the future.
Yes, you are completely right. And I mean, totally off topic, but speaking of TSA,
it changes the whole experience.
It changes the whole experience. I think about it all the time, like, and I love to be like, I just love to come up, hi, like, how are you? And it's so, like, thank you so much. And I think for them, sometimes it's even like they're so stuck in this negative, like, aura and bubble of things. And constantly, like, having, being the way that they are, and then having a response that they're accustomed to. They're accustomed to people being like, you're rude, and like cussing them out too. So it's kind of weird, like, whenever I'm like, hi, he's just so nice, and they're caught off guard. And so, like, it translates very well to the community and the culture and the aspect of education.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, like, I'm such a proponent of creating opportunities and spaces, not only just for students, but for teachers as well, to come in and feel like they are valued, feel like they are important, they are loved. I don't think it's weird for my principal to say, oh my gosh, you're doing such a great job. I love that you are here today. I love that you are on my campus. Like, I don't think that's strange at all. I think that I would love that.
At all. And I think that that's something with teachers and students as well. It's like saying that you love your kids for some people is like, what do you mean you love them? And I'm like, I gotta be with these mugs all day. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
day.
I love that Brandon comes in here and with a stank face and a stank little mouth, and I gotta go send him to get himself right. Like, I
Yeah.
love our little moments that we have together. I love the laughter. I love the jokes. I love seeing them get from I don't get it, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I want to quit on myself, to wait, miss, I think I really figured it out. Like, I love that. I
Yeah.
go back. Listen, I'm Gen Z. One thing about me, I'm gonna quit a job. I don't want to work there. I'm leaving. Right. So I have left many schools, and I have
Very
gone
nice.
back and visited every single one of them babies. Sure have.
Mm-hmm.
There is not one school that I've taught at that I have not gone back and said, oh, wait, you graduate and let me come on pull up. Oh, it's the volleyball game. Let me come pull up. Oh, let me. Absolutely not. I don't go as much as I would like to go, because life be life. But
Yeah.
it is an important part of who I am as an educator to be there for my students. I literally posted today about, like, you want to be the type of educator that students want to share their great times with.
Yes.
I had a student text me last night. I applied to my first college. I am so excited. Like, I just can't believe I got here. And these are colleges I really feel like I'm going to get into because of the hard work. Like, I haven't talked to her in a few months.
Yeah.
So, but for me to be one of the first people you think about when you have a life-altering moment, that matters. And people think that takes 700 hours out of my week, and I'm not, and I don't have no boundaries. I got the strictest of boundaries now.
Yeah.
Strictest. Okay? I'm gonna answer you when I get to it, my love. But they know that it's because I'm doing this work. It's because I'm in my classroom giving the same time and attention I gave to them to the students that I currently teach. So I am going to show up for you in the way that I need to. I'm going to show up for you the way that you need me to. But it might take me a minute to get there. And so I think that it's a mindset shift. And I mean, there's some people who are never going to get it because you shouldn't be in education anyway. But the people who got into education because their why was around, how do I support Black and brown children? How do I support the community? So many educators have gotten into it for that. And then they get into the system and it beats that love out of them. Yes. And I want to support you in bringing that love back. Listen, most of us have school leadership that comes in our classroom twice a year. That means you got 178 more days to do what you need to do for your babies with the door closed.
Exactly.
You got 178 more days, right? So I'm so sorry if you work for one of them scary charter schools where they in your classroom every week. I'm so sorry. Get out of there. Get out of there. Get out of there. Get out of there. But get out. But if you in the place where unfortunately leadership is spread thin and they just don't have the capacity, or it's just not important for them to be in your classroom all the time, we feel like they got cameras in here and they ain't got time to watch them cameras even if they did. So you got 178 days out of this 180 school year to do what you know is best for your kids. Put what they want on the lesson plan, write what they want on the scope and sequence, and then do what your kids need in your classroom. And that's the little space that I'm trying to carve out on the interwebs, is what can you do in your classroom to build better relationships with your students, to support them and empower them, and to be leaders, to be self-advocates, to be confident in their education, because nobody can take that away from them.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I mean, you put it, I want to frame what you said truthfully, like literally beating our love for education and our love for being with these students out of us. And I mean, this isn't just in a regional space or a community space. This is now, I mean, worldwide. This is nationally. We see this on the news. We see this in passing. People who aren't even educators will tell us how hard our job is. I mean, it's the truth. How hard our job is. How we're not worth enough in the eyes of our government or people. I mean, just anyone. So it's just disheartening. But again, I love how you're putting it, as in, we're still here. We're still fighting this fight. We're still being vocal and open. And this is, one step in the right direction. And we're a multitude in that. So I love that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. But we're going to go ahead and kind of finish up with our session for today. But I really want to hone in on some of the key takeaways and some points. So for listeners who are interested in supporting or collaborating with Black on Black education, what are some ways that they can get involved?
Absolutely. So if you want to get involved with this work, if you are like, yeah, she's talking and she sounds inspirational. She sounds like, but what's really tea? What's really going on? First off, I am not famous at all. So if you go Black on Black Ed on Instagram, I'm going to answer you. Like it's and you talking to me. Like it's not, I got my little mini chat, but other than that, you talking to me. Yeah. So please reach out at Black on Black Ed. We can have conversations. If there's an issue that you're dealing with in your classroom that you like, she couldn't solve that with no student center practices. I bet you I could. I bet you I could. So reach out to me at Black on Black Ed, and we'll start the conversation in the DMs to figure out how we get you from a place where you battling with that student, you fighting with them, you're frustrated, you're aggravated, you don't think that these little cute little inspirational student center practices, student voice could help. I'll get you from step one to step 2. Okay. So reach out there. You can always email me at eva@blackonblackeducation.com. Again, it's my email. I'm answering. You will hear back from me within 24 to 48 hours. And I think that the reality is we are all that we have. We are this communities like this, people who are listening to podcasts like this. We're the ones who are going to do the thing. And so I had to genuinely let go of fighting with people and hoping that people were going to listen to me and and say, you know what, let me do what I need to do in my classroom. And wildly enough, people started coming to look for me. Wait, so I've noticed you ain't never had a dean referral in your classroom. Correct. Whole school year, we in November 16th, I have not had one referral. Without one time the dean had to come into my classroom, right? Because I built relationships with my students that give me the option to say, oh, wait, we're devolving. I can see the legs shaking. I know that you need a walk. All right, can you go give this to this teacher? There ain't nothing in that note. Just go take a break. Take a breather. Do this. Again, people think tiny little things like that. So much of the kind of, what's the word? Those buzzwords in education right now, when you get all the way down to the nitty gritty of it, it's student-centered practice. It's thinking first about what does the child in front of you, not the child you had last year, not the child you wish you had, not the child across the classroom, the one right in front of you. What does that child need? And it's when you shape and rewire your teacher mindset to think like that, we then get into the place where we are coming up with solution after solution after solution instead of harping on problem after problem after problem, because the problem's going to come. That's just the nature of our job. So now how do I rewire my brain to show up for the child that is in front of me in this moment in the way that I best can in that moment? And so if you want those kind of weekly tips and tricks on how I'm doing that, you can follow the Black on Black Education podcast on Apple Podcasts. I think it's on Amazon. I think it's also on I know it's on Spotify. So those are places that you can listen to the Black on Black Education podcast for those opportunities. And you can also join our Substack where I update you about the podcast and give you some additional tips and tricks every single week. So those are the places that you can reach out to me. That's how you can get involved. That's how you can support the work, because we need this. Our babies need this. And I have seen what it looks and it feels like to have a classroom where students know that they're loved, they know that they're cared for, and it has made teaching so much more joyful for me than when I was the Nuck If You Buck teacher ready to go there with kids all the time. Like, my life was not as fun when that was my frame of reference. So making this transition, this transformation for me has been so powerful, and I'm ready to support educators in doing it as well.
I love that. And lastly, if there's just one key takeaway or piece of advice you'd like to share with educators about creating happy and healthy learning environments for students, what would it be?
All right, I'm going to put y'all in game. It's one of my favorite little practices. It's called a deload week. So I'm a gym girly. I go to the gym. I lift heavy weights. I love it. It's what I need after a long day of answering 750 questions. And so a part of when I build out kind of my program for myself over the course of 6 or 8 weeks is that when I get to week 8, it's called a deload week. So I start to lift a lot lighter. I'm doing things that are kind of more restorative to my body rather than kind of lifting and tearing those muscle fibers and those sorts of things. And that's called the deload week. And that helps your muscles recover fully so that you can go even harder and even stronger the next week. Same thing can happen in education. So I just finished up a deload week. So if you've ever taught 6th grade, doesn't really matter. I teach global history. And so we just finished talking about social hierarchies in ancient civilizations in Egypt, in India, and in China. What is my favorite movie? Mulan. What do we do for our deload week? we watched Mulan. So we split it up into 3 different classes. We watched some, we did a little activity. We watched some, we did a little activity. We watched some, we did a little activity. And then they had a project where they kind of shared and helped support their understanding of how do we compare the social hierarchies that existed in these ancient civilizations to the movie and what we saw in the movie, the way that women are treated, the way that the expectations of family and those sorts of things. And how is that similar or different to today? I was able to tie my election debrief to that conversation. I was able to tie students' lived experience to that. And I was able to do all my lesson plans for the next week because I was in the back watching a movie that I have seen 100 times. And so I deloaded myself. I had a way less stressful week because I had a lot more time to get things done. And I didn't have not one behavior issue, honey, because they was locked in. A lot of my kids have never seen it. So they were like, wait, miss, what's going to happen? I say, you got to watch the movie. You got to see. And it was just so fun to see them do something or see something for the first time, for me to share something that I loved with them, for them to get to know me a little bit better. I'm in the back singing, like all this stuff. It was just such a joyful week. And now they are buckled up. They are ready. When we start on Monday, we're starting a complete new unit. They are ready for heavy lifting work because last week they got to just kind of coast while learning some really important concepts and ideas that they'll be able to use for the rest of their life. Again, I'm all about making my life easier, please. And that's what student center practice do for me. When I put them at the center of it, I make them do all the heavy lifting. That means I get to sit with my feet up. I love it.
Love it. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Eva, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It was such a great episode, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's clear that the work that you are doing is making a meaningful impact with not only students but educators as well, and even school communities as a whole. So again, just thank you so much for today and being here and being open and candid about your experiences, and also just being a light in the community, especially in the world of education. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciated being here, and I believe in every single one of y'all. So please reach out if you need anything because I am here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. For our listeners, if you're as inspired as we are and want to learn more about Black on Black education, be sure to check out Black on Black Ed. I will put the Instagram, TikTok, everything in the episode description. That way you can follow Eva's journey and Black on Black Ed's educational journey as well. Thank you so much again, Eva, for being here today. Until next time, remember to uplift, empower, and teach in color. Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye, y'all.
Bye.